Welcome to What's New in 22Q.
Hello.
Today we're taking a deep dive into the emotional side of things, really, looking at daily experiences for individuals with 22q11.2 deletion syndrome.
Yeah, there are two really interesting new studies we want to unpack.
Exactly. Our mission, as always, is to sort of cut through the scientific language.
Get to the heart of it.
Right. Pull out what's most important and see how you can actually use this understanding in, well, everyday life.
Which is what matters most for families.
So we'll kick things off with some research by Clemence Feller and her colleagues. Laura Island, Stefan Elise, Maud Schneider were also involved.
Sure.
The study's called Loneliness in Daily Life, a comparison between youths with autism spectrum disorders and 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, 22q11DS.
Deletion Autism Research, I believe, in 2024.
That's the one. It gives a really fresh look at how loneliness is felt, like moment to moment.
And the way they studied it is, it's fascinating. They didn't just ask general questions.
Yeah.
No, they used something called ecological momentary assessment, EMA for short.
Okay, what does that involve?
Basically, checking in with people using their smartphones several times a day.
Ah, so getting real-time snapshots.
Exactly. It captures state loneliness, how you feel right then and there, which is different from trait loneliness.
Which is more of an overall stable feeling.
Precisely. So EMA gives you that dynamic picture of their emotional world as it happens.
Interesting. And the second study.
Right. Then we'll look at a paper from Tommaso Cini and his team.
Okay.
It's titled Self-Esteem and Psychopathology. Differentially relate to real life and social functioning in people with 22q11.2 deletion syndrome.
Quite a title.
It is, yeah. Published just recently, 2025, in the International Journal of Developmental Neuroscience.
And this one looks at self-esteem.
Self-esteem, yeah, and how it connects with mental health and, crucially, how well individuals are managing day-to-day life, real-world functioning. So if you kind of zoom out, both studies together move us beyond just the clinical labels, don't they?
They really do. They help us understand the lived experience, the actual emotional and social reality for people with 22q11DS.
It's about getting a much richer, more complete picture, hearing directly from them, in a way.
Okay, so let's dig into that first study, the Feller one from Autism Research. Loneliness. Such a tough feeling.
It really is. It's that negative feeling you get when there's a gap, right, between the social connections you want and what you actually have.
And we know it's linked to other things like depression, social anxiety.
Absolutely. It's a known predictor. So understanding it in neurodevelopmental conditions like 22q11DS and also ASD, which they compared it to, is vital.
So how did they actually set up the study? Who was involved?
Well, it had a pretty good sample size, 48 young people with ASD, 54 with 22q11DS, and 65 typically developing youths as a comparison group.
And the age range.
12 to 30, so adolescents and young adults.
Right, and they use that EMA method you mentioned.
Yeah, the smartphone check-ins for the state loneliness, the in-the-moment stuff. But they also use standard questionnaires.
For the trait loneliness.
Exactly, the overall feeling. And also, quite interestingly, they asked about people's attitude towards being alone. Like, how comfortable are they with solitude?
Okay, so a mix of methods. And what did they find? Anything surprising?
Actually, yes. This is where it gets really interesting. First off, the average level of that moment-to-moment loneliness, the state loneliness,
Yeah.
it was pretty similar across all three groups, 22q11DS, ASD, and the typically developing group.
Huh. So on average, not necessarily more lonely in the moment.
Not on average, no. But here's a key finding. Everyone, regardless of the group, felt more lonely when they were alone compared to when they were with other people.
Which makes sense. It suggests that desire for connection is still there universally.
It does. But that's just the first layer. Now let's go a bit deeper.
Okay.
While the average level was similar, the fluctuations in loneliness were very different.
Fluctuations, like how much it changed during the day.
Exactly. Think of it as emotional peaks and valleys. The youths with ASD had the biggest swings, the largest with in-person fluctuations.
Wow. More intense ups and downs.
Right. Followed by the individuals with 22q11DS, who also had more variable loneliness levels than the typically developing group.
So it's not maybe a constant feeling, but these intense, maybe brief periods of loneliness.
That's what it suggests. Less of a steady state, more like these disruptive emotional storms. It changes how we might think about supporting them, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just, are you lonely, but how does loneliness feel for you when it hits?
Precisely. And tied into this, they looked at that affinity for aloneness we mentioned.
Right. Comfort with being alone.
Both the 22q11DS group and the ASD group expressed a greater preference for or comfort with being alone compared to the typically developing group.
Interesting. And for the ASD group?
They also showed a lower aversion to being alone, suggesting it's not necessarily seen as a bad thing for them.
So this really challenges that idea that being alone is always negative, right?
Absolutely, it makes you ask, is being alone always bad? For many individuals with 22q11DS or ASD, this study suggests that actually no, enjoying time alone might be positive.
Like a way to recharge.
Exactly, the
Right.
social respite. Social interaction can be incredibly draining, as we know, so having that quiet time might be really important for self-regulation.
We need to respect that preference then. It's not automatically a sign of loneliness.
That seems to be a key message. Now, they also looked at emotional reactions when people felt lonely.
Okay, what happened then?
Well, here again some differences. When individuals with ASD felt lonely, their negative emotions really spiked more sadness, anxiety, anger. And their positive emotions dropped noticeably. Less happiness, less confidence.
A strong negative reaction. And for the 22q11DS group?
They also reported more negative emotions when lonely, yes. But interestingly, their positive emotions didn't seem to decrease as much.
So a slightly different emotional experience of loneliness.
It seems so, which again points towards needing different kinds of support. It's not one size fits all. Maybe for some, it's about managing those intense negative feelings, while for others, something else.
And then there was the link to mental health. This sounds crucial.
Oh, absolutely. This was a really striking finding. In both the 22q11DS group and the ASD group, their own reports of mental health issues.
They're self-reports.
Yes, they were strongly linked to how lonely they felt, both in the moment and overall, and even to their feelings about being alone.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. But what was striking?
The striking part is that there was no significant link between mental health as reported by their caregivers and these loneliness measures.
Wow. Really? So caregivers weren't necessarily picking up on the distress linked to loneliness?
That's what the data suggests.
Yeah.
It's a huge takeaway. It means we could be missing something really important if we only rely on external reports.
It underscores the need to listen directly to the individual.
Absolutely. Their lived experience, their internal world, it's paramount. Their self-report is incredibly valuable.
Okay, so pulling all that together from the Feller study, what are the practical things families and caregivers can take away? What does this mean day to day?
Well, first I'd say take self-reported loneliness very seriously.
Right. If a young person with 22q11DS says they feel lonely, listen.
Exactly. Don't dismiss it as just a mood. It's linked to their well-being, and as we just saw, you might not get that information from other sources. Be vigilant. Be open.
Okay, that's number one. What else?
Second, the finding that being with others was linked to feeling less lonely. It really highlights the value of social connection.
So supporting them in building and maintaining social networks is important.
Definitely. Actively helping them find ways to connect, maybe through shared interests, activities they enjoy, facilitating peer interactions, or even just quality family time. It can be a protective factor.
Makes sense. And the third point.
The third is really about understanding that difference between being alone and feeling lonely.
Ah, yes, the affinity for aloneness.
Right. If your loved one genuinely enjoys their alone time, that's okay. It might even be necessary for them, that social respite we talked about.
So don't push constant social activity if they need that downtime.
Exactly. Respecting their preference for solitude, when it's a preference and not a sign of distress, is crucial. It can be a positive coping strategy.
Okay, and the final takeaway.
It really comes back to listening to the individual themselves. Their self-report is key.
Their feelings, their perspective on loneliness and mental health. It offers insights you might miss otherwise.
Absolutely. Always try to get their direct perspective. It's the most valuable data point you have for understanding their inner world.
Okay, that's incredibly helpful from the loneliness study. Now let's switch gears slightly to the Achini study on self-esteem.
Right. Self-esteem. Basically how you feel about yourself, right? Your self-evaluation.
It involves your thoughts about yourself, your cognitive side, but also the feelings, the affective part.
Precisely. And this study looked at it specifically in the context of 22q11DS.
Which is important because...
Well, we know there's a higher risk for developing psychosis in this population.
Can you briefly explain psychosis again?
Sure. It's essentially when someone experiences a break from reality. It might involve hallucinations, like seeing or hearing things others don't, or delusions, which are strong beliefs that aren't based in reality.
Okay, thank you.
And generally speaking, across many conditions, lower self-esteem is often linked to mental health problems. So the researchers wanted to see how this played out in 22q11DS, especially considering the psychosis risk.
Who did they include in this study?
They had 22 adults with 22q11DS who did not have psychosis, and 10 adults with 22q11DS who did have a diagnosed psychotic disorder.
And the age range?
Quite broad, 16 to 66 years old.
Okay. And they measured self-esteem, obviously. What else?
They used scales to measure the severity of psychiatric symptoms, things like unusual thoughts, apathy, social withdrawal. They also measured real-life functioning.
Which covers everyday things.
Yes, like managing daily tasks, work or school, social relationships, living independently. They use a scale called the S-LOF for that, and the Essers scale for self-esteem.
Got it. So what was the main finding regarding self-esteem?
This was quite hopeful, actually. They found similar levels of self-esteem between the group with psychosis and the group without psychosis.
Really? So having a psychosis didn't automatically mean lower self-esteem in this group?
Apparently not, according to this study. It suggests a certain resilience in self-perception, which is, well, it's a very positive finding.
That is encouraging. But were there other differences between the groups?
Yes. The group with psychosis did show, as you might expect, higher severity of symptoms.
Okay.
And, importantly, they also had lower real-life functioning, especially the study noted in social areas.
Ah. So even if self-esteem held up, the psychotic symptoms still had a clear impact on daily life, particularly socially.
Exactly. It shows that while self-esteem is one important factor, the symptoms themselves can create significant barriers, particularly in navigating social interactions.
Did they look at how things correlated, like how symptoms, functioning, and self-esteem related to each other?
They did.
Yeah.
And they found that more severe symptoms were linked, as you might guess, to worse overall functioning, worse social functioning, and also lower self-esteem.
So they are interconnected?
Yes, but here's a really interesting nuance. Self-esteem was positively linked to overall real-life functioning.
Meaning higher self-esteem went with better general functioning.
Right. But it was not specifically linked to social functioning in the same way.
How do you interpret that?
Well, it might suggest that self-esteem plays a bigger role in aspects of daily life that rely more on internal drive, motivation, managing personal tasks, things influenced by your environment and your own sense of capability.
Okay.
Whereas the social challenges, particularly when psychosis is present, might be more directly driven by the symptoms themselves. Things like difficulty interpreting social cues, anxiety in social situations, maybe negative symptoms like withdrawal. Self-esteem might not be enough to overcome those specific symptom-driven social barriers on its own.
That makes sense. It's a subtle but important distinction. So, thinking practically again, what does the Sacchini study tell families supporting someone with 22q11DS?
Okay, first big takeaway. Boosting self-esteem is likely very beneficial for overall daily functioning.
And that's true whether psychosis is present or not.
Yes, the study suggests interventions focusing on self-esteem can help improve how people manage their daily lives, regardless of psychosis status. Think of self-esteem as a protective personal resource.
So things like therapy, supportive environments, focusing on strengths, they can make a real difference to overall functioning.
Exactly. But second takeaway, if psychosis is present, those symptoms are strongly tied to social difficulties.
Right. The self-esteem work is important, but you also need to address the social challenges directly.
Precisely. It points to a need for targeted support for social and interpersonal skills, perhaps specific therapies or strategies to manage social anxiety or navigate interactions, alongside addressing the psychotic symptoms themselves.
So it's not an either-or situation.
Not at all. Which leads to the third point, really. A comprehensive approach is key.
Addressing both the internal resource of self-esteem and the external challenges, especially social ones, impacted by symptoms.
Yes. How can we best support overall well-being? By acknowledging both sides, the direct impact of symptoms and the broader role of self-esteem. Build them up from the inside while giving them tools to navigate the outside world.
Okay, so bringing these two studies together now, Fowler on loneliness, Sacchini on self-esteem, what's the combined picture?
I think it paints a really rich, nuanced view. Both studies hammer home that individual experiences within 22q11DS are unique. Blanket assumptions just don't work.
We saw that with loneliness, the fluctuations, the potential positive aspect of being alone.
Right. And with self-esteem, it can remain resilient even with psychosis, but symptoms still impact social life directly.
So we learned that while loneliness might ebb and flow, and enjoying solitude can be healthy, we still need to be really attentive if someone says they feel lonely.
Crucially attentive, yes. And we learned that self-esteem is a powerful asset for general functioning.
even if specific social challenges linked to symptoms need their own targeted support.
Exactly. It really underscores the need for a holistic view, doesn't it?
It does. Understanding the person's inner world, their feelings, their strengths, not just focusing on the clinical challenges.
And the thread running through both studies may be the most important point.
Asking them, listening to their perspective.
Always. Asking them directly how they feel. Their self-report, their voice is invaluable. It might tell a very different and much deeper story than just observation.
It really shows how vital it is to combine different ways of understanding, whether it's using clever methods like EMA or simply making sure the individual's own voice is central to any assessment or support plan.
Yeah, it's all about tailoring support to that unique person, helping them navigate their world, both internal and external, with strength and understanding.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, and it was brought to you by 22q11 Europe.
That's the European Association dedicated to supporting families living with 22q11 deletion syndrome.
Thank you so much for listening to What's New in 22q, produced by 22q11 Europe.
Take care, everyone.
Take care and talk to you soon.